We're going to go through 20 plus action items for your business. And the first one we're going to start with is mindset. Mindset of business owners is really, really important because fear, uncertainty, and doubt is where chaos grows. And that fear and uncertainty starts in your head. And so I'd like to start with sharing a model that my mindset coach shared with me a year or so ago that's been really valuable to me. And that's called the TEAR model. I always called it the TEAR model, but she kept correcting me. So it's a TEAR model, T-E-A-R. And those stand for T for thoughts, all right? Thoughts that we're having, which are driven from currently from the news cycle, from the social media and whatnot. A lot of people are thinking dire thoughts and are really being concerned about things. And that leads to their emotional state. Our thoughts drive our emotions. And if we don't watch what we're thinking, we can get ourselves in a emotional tizzy, in a world of fear and anxiety, stress. And so as you're progressing as a business owner and as a family person, as a concerned citizen, as a community member, watch your thoughts because they're going to drive your emotional state. And your emotional state is going to set you up for inaction or action. And we would like now, in a time of a need for lots of action, to have our emotional state energize ourselves, motivate ourselves, rather than demoralizing and, in the case of fear, getting us into fight or flight or fear or freeze. Excuse me, fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of folks are in the fight and fear, and in some cases flight modes, and that's not particularly helpful to you, to your business, or to your community. And so our emotional state can drive our actions, and ultimately our actions will drive our results. And so pretty much throughout this presentation, we will be coming back to our emotional state, our thinking, and how that's impacting the actions we're taking and the results we're getting. So that's number one. Number one, worry about mindset. Yeah, some of the things that are, driving us, our fear and whatnot. Anybody been to Costco lately and seen empty shelves? Now that right off the bat kind of freaks you out. Wow, I didn't hoard toilet paper. Am I in trouble? Or there's no bread left. Not really sure how people are going to consume all this food, but the mindset and the thinking and their emotional state has gotten people to take actions that aren't necessarily fully rational. How many rolls of toilet paper do you need at any given time? And so that whole worry mindset is going to get you into actions and results that are not helpful. So mindset's first. Second thing is communicate. One of the things that's going to drive fear and uncertainty and doubt in your team is if you don't communicate and communicate consistently and timely. And so you want to be communicating with your team, bringing them up to date. What is the situation in your business? How does that impact them? Honesty, integrity, timeliness, all important at this point in time. You want to be communicating with your customers. Your customers need to know what's going on with you, their supplier, whether it's an insurance or any other business you're in. If they don't know what's going on, they're in a world of uncertainty, and uncertainty and doubt can lead to fear. gets them into that thinking mode. So understand what information your customers need and communicate with them, and communicate often. Communicate with your networks. Be in touch. Keep in touch. Find ways to meet virtually, and let people know that you're still interested, you're still looking out for them, and you're hoping that they're doing the same thing for you. So communicate. Communicate with your suppliers and stakeholders. Things have significantly changed, and as you're looking at both upstream and downstream in your business, think about things from their perspective and what concerns might they have, and how can you address them and communicate to them in ways that will remove their fear, reduce their uncertainty, and take away their doubt. And then fourth, your community. How do you reach out and help the neighbors? That's one of the things that really has been, I guess, really heartening about what's going on. Folks are really stepping up and helping their neighbors. I've seen all kinds of posts where people are offering free daycare for people who have to work and don't have an out, and the kids are off from school. So what are the things that you can do in your community to help out? What are the things your business can do in your community that can help out? Those are all opportunities to remove fear, help the community, and bolster your relationship and your position in the community. The third thing,
Can I add something in there, Rick?
please do, Dennis.
In all of your communication, make a prior decision. What is the vibe that you want to give off? And you don't want to give off the vibe of fearful. You want to give off the vibe that we all have this to deal with, and this is how we're moving on and how we're dealing with it. And let's be human and relax about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Which leads to point 3 here, Dennis. Be positive, right?
Yep. Sorry. Yes, exactly.
You have a choice. We can either grow the fear or be the leader that's going to take people through this really unprecedented in our lifetime, since I don't think anyone's 102. Doesn't look like it. That was around here for the Spanish flu. Be the leader, help people get through this, and help them understand that they have a level of control on their fear. Be that positive influence on them. And again, panic and worry doesn't help. And by the way, if you're thinking and your emotional state is panic and fear, it's written all over your face when you're communicating. And that doesn't help because most of our communication as people, person to person, the words are a tiny fraction of it. The facial expressions and the intonation of the voice, a much bigger portion, and then the body language, even bigger. And so get yourself, when you're communicating, into a positive state of mind. Think about what can be, not what can't be, and help dissuage that panic. Look for small wins every hour. I just went over to the West Side Market and didn't have to wait in line anywhere. And I've got a couple of bags full of provisions for home. It's a small win for me. And there was no traffic. I was able to cross the road even between greens. Look for the small wins. Find ways to reinforce your positive attitude rather than, getting your iPhone out and tuning into the news and find out that, oh my goodness, the death count is up to whatever. Look for wins. Don't look for losses. Think about how you can sell toilet paper. Now, only half facetious there, right? There are companies that are doing all kinds of creative things, not necessarily around toilet paper, but there's a brewery that I read about that is taking their byproducts and making hand sanitizer out of it and marketing and giving that away. What a fabulous way to make be positive and help the community. I have a client, I've got a couple of clients actually, that their services can be of with a pivot can be really beneficial to their community. And so getting the insights and the thinking to figure out what toilet paper is in your business and how you can help the situation. And as I've kind of alluded a couple of times, less news is better. You need to keep aware of what's going on, but constant drip, drip, drip of bad news is quite frankly bad news. It doesn't help your mindset, which doesn't help your thoughts, which ruins your emotional state and your ability to take action. So be positive, lead your people, and this is an opportunity to turn lemonade into lemonade.
Just FYI, as a rule, globally, Action Coach discourages watching the news because negativity sells so well, the news has to slant itself very negatively. And so if you watch news long enough, you will become very negative. It's sort of what it's designed to do. So minimize watching the news.
Yeah. We have a Facebook group here in Ohio City that's the Ohio City Crime Watch. What happens when you read the Ohio City Crime Watch 3 times a day? What do you think about the neighborhood?
Oh, yeah.
My God, I can't stay here. It's not safe. So less news is better. Number 4, don't argue with the facts. Facts are the facts. And we're in a pandemic. It's been declared. It is. You can choose to argue. You can choose to learn to play by the new rules, and you can learn to play to win. But denying it and being critical of the responses that are being taken is really not helpful. It's a fact. We're going to have to workshop and entertain from home. What does that mean, and how can you leverage that? Think about that from each of these. A lot of folks are going to work, telecommuting. One of my clients is looking at telepsychiatry and getting into that business very quickly. From an entertainment perspective, my family is a bunch of board game geeks, and our daughter has found a website where we can play board games together online for a couple of bucks a month. How cool is that? You get to really do some interesting entertainment and do things that we love. We just have to do them from home. We can't go to the board game cafe or over to a friend's house for that right now. Another fact, distribution methods are going to change. The supply chain is disrupted. What kind of things can we do to leverage that? I have a potential client that has the opportunity to make clothing locally for stores and shorten the supply chain dramatically. The businesses that she hasn't been able to get into in the past, she has an opportunity right now to get in there and become a supplier. Well, I guess it's a supply chain. The distribution method, similarly, if you have a restaurant and you're closed because you don't deliver, you need to change that. You need to pivot and act quickly in that respect. I have a client, not a client, a neighbor whose smoothie shop has been shuttered, and they have a food truck. And the discussion went along the lines of, well, turn the food truck into like an ice cream truck, except you're not selling ice cream, you're selling whatever. And they couldn't hear that because their whole mindset was, well, people can't come into our store and nobody wants to hire our food truck. And so their whole mindset was what can't happen. All of their gigs have been canceled, stores closed, and here they have an opportunity to make lemonade because the distribution method, they have at their fingertips, but they're blind to it because they're in fear mode and they're frozen. So think about what's changing. One of the things we know is that the pandemic is a chapter, and this chapter in our life is going to be months long. The discussion right now is weeks, That's not particularly likely. If you look at the data and you look at what flattening the curve means, um, everyone hopefully knows what flattening the curve means. If you look at the distribution of cases based on the transfer rate of this virus, which is something around 3, everybody interacts with and can pass on average, three other people. That's an explosive growth curve. And if we don't do the social isolation, isolation. If we don't do that, that peak of that curve comes so fast and so heavy that it's going to overwhelm our medical system, and we'll be the next Italy, where they don't have enough beds, they don't have enough respirators, and they're actually having to make decisions. In Italy's case, if you're over 80, you don't get care. We don't want to have that to happen. So we're separating out, we're closing business, and that's going to spread the curve out. And that's good news. In one respect, we're not going to hopefully overwhelm our medical system. But the bad news is that actually takes the time that we're going to be isolated, the time that we're going to be running our business differently is not weeks. It is more likely months. And so plan on this chapter to be months and pivot and take advantage of that. There's a different mindset if you think this issue and this shutdown is 2 weeks long versus 2 months long. Think in terms of months, because that, based on the data I've seen, is the more likely outcome. And then, equally likely on the heels of this pandemic is going to be the next recession. We've already gone longer than I think in history we've gone between recessions. Certainly the disruptions in business is going to have a financial impact, an economic impact, and that chapter in our lives is going to be months long. And so as we're pivoting and planning on how to deal with our current new situation, think many months, don't think a few weeks. The longer the mindset you have on this, the more creative and different kinds of things you can think about that you need to change and pivot and do things. Which leads us to number 5. Let me make sure I'm not missing any comments here. All right, so far so good. So the 5th thing is change. We're going to change. Things have changed. Change and the speed of change is uncomfortable. The question is, how well do we handle it? And again, that gets back to the first item, mindset. Understand that change is happening, and rather than fight it, think about how you can leverage it. What can you do to get ahead of the curve, to get ahead of what your competition is doing, and take advantage to the extent that you can of the situation at hand, and lead the change. Be the business owner, be the leader that is going to take charge, communicate, engage your folks, and make the change happen in a timely manner. We're talking about clients of ours pivoting and changing their business model in the next day or two. How do you do that? You got to get ahead of it. On the topic of change, this formula that's on the screen now is what we call, or ActionCOACH calls, the formula for change. And for those of you who haven't been to some of our workshops, let me explain this important formula. We'll start on the right side with the R. R is our resistance. We all naturally have a resistance to change, and that's a resistance to social distancing. It's a resistance to just about anything we get involved. It's the resistance that people have of doing business with you. And so we always are working to overcome resistance. And to overcome resistance, what's on the other side of the greater than sign is what we need to work on enhancing. And so the formula for change starts with dissatisfaction. People will not change what they're doing, will not change how they're thinking, what they're buying, how they're behaving, if there is not a level of dissatisfaction And so part of the formula change is understanding dissatisfaction and getting the person you're working with to understand dissatisfaction from their perspective. If there's no dissatisfaction, there's no value to what's inside the parentheses here. And the second component inside the parentheses is V for vision. It's the vision of what could be. If you're going to pivot your business, I think the D side of things right now, if your restaurant is shut down, if your business is shut down, that's pretty clear. We're not going to be able to pay the rent. Turns out we may not have to, though, but that's another story. D is high. But if you lack V, if vision is zero, it's still zero inside here, right? And so V for vision is what could be. How can you pivot? If you pivot, what can this look like? And get a good picture of that. Paint a high picture of what it could be. Get your vision strong for what you're pivoting to. And then identify what are the first steps. And if the first steps are easy, the sum on the left side is greater than the resistance to overcome it. And so whether you're dealing with the changes you're going to need to make in your office, with your employees or your team, or with your clients or with your suppliers or in the community, this formula for change is really important to understand and leverage. We might need to change our products, our services, our pricing, our delivery models, our staffing. All of these things are on the table right now. How can we pivot and create what's needed and what's wanted in the marketplace right now? We might even have to change our whole business model. That was my conversation from 2 hours ago. Vision of what he was creating in his business versus the vision of what it can be and how good it can be despite the awful situation we have in. He's getting ready to pivot his business in the next 48 hours because we were able to build up his vision of what could be as opposed to dwell on what wasn't to be. And in some cases, this even means breaking your business model, breaking it and innovating and coming up with a new way of doing your business. And so that's number 5, change. Number 6, conserve resources. Everything from cash to your energy needs to be properly leveraged, not squandered. And do that in a way that decreases risks. And so cash is king right now. If you have access to cash, if you have that credit card offer that allows you to pay off bills and not have to pay anything on it for a year or whatever, now is the time to take advantage of those things while they are still available. Stop spending. This is a double-edged sword. Telling folks not to spend and then wanting them to spend with you. But you need to look at your discretionary spending. What can you avoid? Get that one, Dennis. Figure out what you can reduce your outlays. How can you minimize the cost of doing business? Renegotiate. You're in a position of leverage. Renegotiate. Folks that have local supply of things have an opportunity to renegotiate and do better. And if you can, slow things down, postpone activities that are not necessary. If you're doing a complete rebranding of your business, maybe this isn't the time. Or maybe it's the time to focus not on rebranding, but on redefining and pulling in those clients. How can you pivot and change your marketing to appeal to the current situation and postpone or slow down the other activities that you're doing? But whatever you do, keep marketing, keep selling. Now is the time. Businesses are still doing, a lot of businesses are still doing business. People are still buying things. You have the opportunity to reach out there and get that. Use your credit. Use other people's money. It's cheaper and getting cheaper. If you can refinance, refinance. Get it now while they're still lending. Get it while those credit card offers are still available. Look at those credit lines that are being offered. I don't know about you, but I get probably 3 a week in the mail. They're going to stop coming. And so if you have them, take advantage of it. And yes, this is not just your business lines of credit and credit cards, but personal as well. Refinance if you can, I mentioned that. And find the lowest rates. The Fed is, I think, dropped, if I've not been paying that close attention, but I believe the rate now that the Fed charges is 0. Believe it or not, it can go lower than that, but 0 is pretty darn low. The mortgage rates hit a low last week, and a lot of people jumped in on it, and they've bounced back as a result because they overwhelmed the banks and the lending institutions. So be aware and be ready to move quickly. Staffing appropriately. Adding employees happens when you're growing. The reality is subtracting employees happens when you're contracting. It's what businesses do. It's not easy. It's not fun, but it is absolutely necessary. That being said, be creative. If you have a team, use vacations. Be creative. Find ways to minimize the outlay. Layoffs if needed, but if you're going to lay off people, do not trickle them out the door. Do it all at once. There is nothing worse than being in a business than you come in and this week Dennis is gone. And then 2 weeks later, Mark's gone. And then 3 weeks later, Sharon's gone. And all that does is create more fear, angst, uncertainty. It gets back to the FUD in item 2 and item 1, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt create chaos. So layoffs, if you need to do them all at once. Face it, do it, move on. Pay cuts as appropriate. If you can get away with reducing income, do it. Understand that a business is an entity and it's what pays your bills and your livelihood. It needs to survive. And so we are really in a survival mode right now. Do what it needs to cut the expenses where appropriate. Understand for whatever level of business you're at, what kind of staff you can support or what kind of salary or wages you can afford, and then size appropriately. Do not wait on that. Similarly, look at what operational changes need to be happening. Smaller companies, like what I suspect everybody on this call is, can pivot and can pivot quickly. So do so. Figure out how you can change. If there's technology needed, if you're going to do things remotely. If anyone was trying to get on the call yesterday, you realize that there's technology. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, as I fumbled yesterday in the implementation. But that's okay. It's better to get out there and get trying it than to wait until everything's perfect and miss the boat and let your business slip away. Operationally, how can you change your meetings and do them remotely? What does that mean? What extra meetings do you need to have if you are telecommuting into your business? How do you keep in touch? How are you reporting back and forth? What does all that look like? As the business leader, you need to be thinking about those things. How can you, in this time, even further enhance your customer service? Think from the perspective of what's in it for them and find a way to make the customer experience even more special, wonderful, awesome. Wow them. One of the things that businesses tend to forget when they shut down the office is that there's banking and mail that needs to go on. Think about those things. And again, back to communication. How are you going to communicate? When are you going to communicate? And put together a game plan and follow it. Be consistent. Don't let fear, unknown, and chaos enter the business. And again, it may be weeks or months that we're going to be doing this. It is most likely longer rather than shorter at this point in time. Number 10, deliveries, distribution systems. What can you sell? What can you order online? Do it now. If you have folks that buy things from you, figure out how to add delivery. If people aren't coming into your business and you've got staff, can you turn them into delivery folks? What would that look like? How would that happen? Add online and phone delivery. If you have services that can be delivered, like what we're doing right here, we are doing all of our workshops now with Zoom, and the ability to have people not come into our space, not come close to other folks, but still do the planning and the thinking that needs to happen in their business. And again, as you figure out the online and the other services you're adding, staff appropriately. How can you reallocate the folks you have, or if you don't have the folks, who can you get to help you? If people won't come to you, you need to go to them. And all of this requires communication. How to communicate with the customers that you're changing your business model, that you've pivoted, that these services are now available. What is the best way to reach out for them? One of the things we preach to all of our clients at ActionCOACH is that you create a database and you have a way of keeping in touch with your clients every 90 days. If in fact you don't have a list of your clients right now, that's a little tough to do. So learn from this and start making sure you know who's doing business with you and you know how to get in touch with them in the future. But for now, come up with novel ways of creating and communicating. If you belong to a religious organization, use the temple or the church communication systems as a way to socially get the message out. This is what's available. Networking opportunities via the web. There's several of those things coming out right now. How can you leverage those? And keep marketing. People and businesses are still buying either from you or from somebody else. If your goods and your services are still needed, it's out there. Keep marketing and make sure you have a focus on WIFM. And WIFM stands for what's in it for me, and the me is not you, it's your customer. So think about, what does your customer want? What do they need? What are their fears right now? What are their concerns? And how can you address them? And then market it to that. And if you have questions about that, reach out to us. We can help you with that message. A lot of folks, the mistake they make in their marketing is they talk about themselves. And that's really profoundly uninteresting to most of us. And so if you're going to, for instance, if you're a restaurant or something, you're going to have delivery. If you said, Phelps Cafe now delivering, you've caught exactly nobody's attention except my mom if she were still around, right? Nobody's interested in me. What they are interested in is, are you locked up? Are you stuck inside and socially isolated and miss our great food? Call this number or go online and order it. Make it from their perspective, what's in it for them, address their concerns, their aspirations, their desires. And increase, not decrease. Now is the time to catch your competition off guard. Every time there's a downturn, there are winners and losers. And usually the winners are really big winners. So figure out what you can do to take advantage of the situation that your competition is not taking advantage of. Create new offers, new rates, new bundles, whatever it is that can enable you to grab business now. And measure your 5 ways and adjust strategies with each of them. If you don't know what the 5 ways are, you can get in touch with us, but very quickly, the 5 ways are the 5 ways that you drive profits in a business. There are the number of leads, the number of the percent that you can convert of those leads into customers, how often those customers get back to you, how much they spend, and your expenses or profit margin. Item number 12, repeat business and sales. We all know your existing clients already love you, and it's always cheaper and easier to resell to existing client rather than acquiring a new one. So what kind of things can you do to bring existing customers back in? How can you do bulk buys and get cash up front? How can you do things that will help your clients and help you at the same time? And whatever you do, keep your customers at all cost. They are the lifeblood of our business. Keep in touch with them, communicate, and reach out to them with ways that you can support them and help them through this really unprecedented, well, crisis that we're going through. And communication, of course, is vital. Sales from new business standpoint. Needs still exist. Just be sure to get that new business. Most of your competition will be challenged. Many people right now are in FUD, fear, uncertainty, and denial and distress. Take advantage of that. Get out there. Be the first one out there to offer the services, the enhanced services that will delight your customers, and you'll pull in new business. And again, more than ever, what's in it for me, the customer? Think about that, market it to it, and use it in your sales strategy. Remember the formula for change. When you are selling, you want people to understand the dissatisfaction and articulate it, clearly see the vision of what could be with you and your new services, and make the first steps easy, and it will overcome resistance. And communicate, communicate, communicate. Item 14, common sense and compassion. I think we're all still human. We may stop acting like that sometimes, but we're all still humans. Over-deliver on customer service. Really understand with them, really get out there and make an impact. Delight your customers. Give them services, give them attention that they weren't expecting. And clean. Don't touch. If you have a business where people are coming in or you're interacting in any way, make it really obvious, make it really clear that you understand the concerns, you understand the dangers, and you are being proactive about it. Provide hand sanitizers. Put the people first, and perhaps above all, be nice and take a chill pill. Yeah, Robbie is saying that they're reaching out to all of their clients over 60. Thank you very much. And getting into dialogue on how they're doing. That's fantastic. Number 12, I'll go backwards. Repeat business. Robbie, sorry I missed that earlier. What else have I missed here? Okay, perfect. And take a chill pill. You know, be upbeat. Get your thoughts. Remember, go back to number 1, mindset. It's what you're thinking about. Your thinking drives your emotion. Get your minds, get your thoughts right. Get yourself in a positive emotional state, and be that person who is leading and not feeding the panic, right? Be that person who's, you know, yes, it's a difficult time. Don't deny the facts, but it's, you know, it's a Stockdale principle, right? Recognize the reality. It's not cool. He was a prisoner of war in Hanoi. Not a good situation to be in, but then realize what the potential in the future is and take that chill pill, be positive, and look toward the future. Don't feed the panic. Some things don't change, and so think about what's going to stay the same. You know, we're still going to have weather, most likely. Might even have more extreme weather. Things break. You know, if you have rain and flood and hail, hurricanes and twisters, you know, there's still going to be a need for AC and heaters and plumbing and services and so on. People still eat. And yes, many will stay home. And by the way, no, not many will go out right now, at least not in Ohio. So cross that one out. Things are constantly changing. But they still want to eat. And I hope that my favorite restaurants are going to offer me the ability to get their wonderful food and eat it at home. But so far, not so much. What are the needs in your industry? Get clear on those and think about what stays the same and leverage that. Number 16, money, money, money. Once again, so many opportunities with money when you have it and extra challenges when you don't have it. Now, this is kind of a conversation about what could have been, but may not be. Um, if, get that one, Dennis. If, if you're as old as I am, or even maybe a little younger, or heaven forbid as old as Dennis, you've seen recessions before. And what happens with every recession? They end. Some end sooner, some end later, but they all end. And during the recession, those folks that have money snap up the real estate, snap up the undervalued stocks, buy the businesses, buy the competition that wasn't as able to pivot or didn't pivot or got locked in fear and fright and freeze. They become easy targets. And if you have the cash, you get to leverage that and take advantage of that. Money is cheap now, but may not stay that way if you don't have money and you can't take advantage of the downturn in the market. Well, can't take advantage of the downturn in the market. But guess what? This will end. You'll build your business up and remember to save for the next time. Because this will happen again, maybe not, hopefully not a pandemic, but downturns happen, and those who are prepared and have money squirreled away will have huge opportunities in the next few months. The rest of the folks, not so much. Be concerned about your team and leverage it. Think about them constantly. Are you helping them or hurting them? Communicate, over communicate. We've said that over and over again. But advise, direct, and for goodness sakes, lead the team. Lead the team. This is an unprecedented situation. Things I suspect nobody was able to pull out the process, the system in your business that says how to deal with a pandemic. Right? There's basically no businesses in this country. There might be some in Hong Kong and other places that dealt with SARS or dealt with MERS in the past that have a pandemic or epidemic response plan. We don't. And so just following the system isn't helpful. Make sure you communicate and lead your team and help them through the process and help them understand what's different about how we're communicating with our clients. Think about, again, number one, mindset. If you're calling or your team is calling your clients, make sure before they dial that phone, their mindset is right, their emotional states are right, so that the actions that they're taking come across positive, upbeat, empathetic. All the right emotions are in that call, and they're doing you good, not harm. There are few leaders out there, lots of followers, and without leaders, people will follow each other off the cliff. And so make sure your team and your family and your extended family and your friends are finding the leadership they need. And if you can provide it, please do so. Because a lot of folks are going to run right off that cliff. The folks that are still partying on the beaches in Florida, not a good plan. So be the leader, communicate, communicate, communicate. Number 18, have compassion. There are many, many people in this world, millions, if not billions of people that are worse off than you are. And so keep that in mind. You know, as rough as we may have it, as we have to, you know, stay locked into our condos and watch Netflix and eat food that we have frozen or whatever, and consume from our massive stockpile of toilet paper. There are folks out there that have nothing. There are folks in Italy that are dealing with just awful situations. Um, be thankful for what we have. Be compassionate. Show empathy. Slow down. Make sure you see the humanity around you. Be that calming influence and force in the world. And take advantage of your downtime. Do some reading. We highly recommend reading about human psychology and the brain. Both Dennis and I are huge brain nerds, love to learn about how the brain works and how it impacts us, and all about herd mentality.
We have huge brains. We're just huge nerds about the brain.
We're just nerds. That's fair. Um, so have compassion. Excuse me. Well, I didn't get any of that, anybody. Number 19, create a plan. Anxiety grows where there is no plan. So start thinking, whether it's this week or this weekend. Think it through. Take the time, calm yourself, get your thoughts in order, get your emotional state positive, and start the action of planning. What am I going to do differently in my business, in my life, and how can I make this as positive experience as I can? How am I going to market during this pandemic? What can I do that is beneficial to my customers and beneficial to my business? That's going to take some clarity of thought, and it doesn't hurt to meet with others, virtually in this case, and bounce ideas off each other. Think about this from other perspectives. We often can't see the forest for the trees in our own businesses. All right, and so having others to say, okay, your business is this. These are your challenges and issues. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Marketing during the pandemic is absolutely critical. Sales with fewer leads. What are you going to do differently? How can you better understand, first of all, the formula for change, D times V plus F greater than R, and psychology and people, and really leverage so that you raise your conversion rate. That's the second of the 5 ways. Raise your conversion rate so you can get those sales even though you have fewer leads. And how are you going to operate with less revenue? What cuts do you need to take? What changes can you make today, not tomorrow, to lessen the revenue burden? Lessen the expense burden and not impact your profitability. And invest where opportunity exists. If you have the resources to invest, take advantage of it. And if you don't have the resources to invest, remember, 10 years from now, you'll have another opportunity. Build your business back up and get to where next time you'll have the ability to invest. And number 20, learn, plan, and act. Do not procrastinate. That's interesting. Procrastination comes from perfection, and perfection typically leads to regret. If you wait too long and try and get everything exactly right, it's not going to help. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your business. You can't be perfect. So get a picture of where you're going, plan to the extent you can, and take a step out there. And if you fumble the first webinar, you fumble the first webinar. It's not a big deal. You'll get better the second time. You probably have enough knowledge already. Leverage it. You can create an action plan probably in just a few hours. If you do, and you tend to procrastinate because you're a human, we all do it, then create deadlines and share those deadlines and hold yourself to account on those deadlines. The client I was talking to 2 hours ago needs to have pivoted and repositioned his entire business by Friday so that he's in a position over the weekend to get his religious organization's help. Figure out how you can turn lemons into lemonade. Become the leader. be the leader you are who needs to lead. There are opportunities in every crisis, but they only come to those with the clarity of thought to reach out and do those things. And so those are our 20 actions for your business. To finish up, we have some specific things that are available if you are interested and available. We have a 2-part workshop. Every 90 days, we do with all of our clients a 90-day planning workshop, which basically plans out how to be successful and grow our business in the next 90 days. Well, that's taken a little bit of a turn because the plans that we had in place at the beginning of this year are all in the heap out back. And now it's a business survival plan, how we're going to deal with the pandemic. And to support the community, we are basically running at our cost a 2-part workshop. We usually do it in one day, but we're going to do it in 2 parts because we're going to do it remotely. On Tuesday morning, around lunch, 10:30 to 1:30, we're going to lay out the business processing plan, and then we're going to give you Wednesday and Thursday to work on it, and Friday morning, we will collectively come back together, all virtually through Zoom, and examine the plans that have been built, critique the plans, help each other enhance those plans. We will then launch into bi-weekly educational calls to keep everybody current. And if you do this, you'll be able to leverage us as your coaching firm. And so you can get there at plantosurvive.eventbrite.com. And so hopefully these 20 items have been of use to you. We've got 1 minute. If anybody has any questions, I will unmute everybody and you can chime in.
Hey, Rick, how much is your 2-part workshop cost?
It's $99.
Okay.
Dang. It's being sold elsewhere for upwards of $600 and $700. But Dennis and I thought about it and said, we want to help as many people as we can. How low can we go? And that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Anybody else? If you want these slides, you can email us at teamneo@actioncoach.com. And if you want any more information on our programs, email markphelps@actioncoach.com.
Thank you, everybody.
Your questions. What's that, Dennis?
I said, thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you, everybody. It is now 4 p.m. And thank you for taking the time to come out and get out there, take action, start with making sure your mindset is where it needs to be so that your emotional state is where it needs to be so you can take the actions that you want to take and need to take in this trying time to get the results, the best possible results you can for your business. I'm Rick Phelps with Action Coach, and with me has been Dennis Willis, also of Action Coach. He's out west in Sheffield. We work together. We call ourselves collectively Team Neo, not to be confused with Team Neo, because we're not. But we are Action Coach Team Neo. Any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Most of you have my cell phone number, very least email at markphelps@actioncoach or rickphelps@actioncoach or Dennis Willis@actioncoach, and you can directly connect with any of us. And we're more than happy to talk with you and work with you and help you through this crisis and to make lemonade. With that, if there are no other questions, thank you all so very much for joining us. Have a great day. Keep safe. Keep separated. Let's get this pandemic behind us and move forward. Thank you all so much.